Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2022. Not sure if I can say Happy New Year now that it's 11 days in, but Happy New Year anyway. Hope you had a good break, and I'm really excited to be getting back into Swords and Sandals Immortals for 2022. Big year ahead. Now, this particular video is going to be a long one, so settle in, get a snack, get a whole bunch of snacks, because we're going to be here probably for at least an hour and a half, knowing how much I talk in these videos. What we're doing today is I'm going to be answering the questions from the Discord server that have been asked to me over the last 4 months or so. I think the last questions I answered were back in August. So time passes quick when you're busy. I'm not going to be able to get to every question, and I'm not sure every answer is going to be to your satisfaction or even relevant, because they all come from up here, and often they're just off the cuff answers. So we'll see how they go. Sometimes we get good answers, sometimes we don't. But I want to thank you guys for all the questions you've submitted to me over the months, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to get to them earlier. I wouldn't mind actually writing answers to them rather than doing these long videos, because often by the time I do these videos, people have forgotten what they asked and they don't care about the answer anymore. So anyway, let's settle in for Ask Me Anything 3. No, Ask Me Anything Discord questions 3. I've done about 8 or 9 of these, but this is the third one for the Discord sessions. All right, my friends, let's jump into it. All right, we start today with a doozy from Michael Loader, who is a patron of the series and a friend on Twitter as well. I've been a long-time fan of the series, and I definitely appreciate his support. He asks, what are the favorite foods of the main characters of Swords and Sandals? I don't know. Good question. Yeah. Well, Wolfgang, being loosely based on a younger version of me. When I was younger, I ate a lot of tacos, and I ate a lot of pizza, and a lot of a lot of microwave cheese sandwiches. Let's go with microwave cheese sandwiches, and assuming that somehow Baron Wolfgang has access to some kind of microwaving technology. Belgrave, who's based on my good friend Greg Bernard Wee. I know for a fact Greg is very partial to Malaysian food, having a Malaysian background, and so let's say some kind of Malaysian curry for him. Who else? He chaos is just probably anything he can get his hands on, because he's a bit of a nut job. Arglax probably dog food. Bors the Mighty probably drinks from the skulls of his enemies. All right, we better get on with this, otherwise we'll be here for hours. Logic asks, question, is Swords and Sandals Immortals going to be bug-free? I hope so. Yeah, well, Swords and Sandals have been very buggy in the past, and I freely admit that. Swords and Sandals Immortals has written a new engine called Godot, and that is actually a much better engine for making games and sort of tracking the bugs as they go. So far, I've found this to be a pretty bug-free experience, but I have help now. I have a team of dedicated testers that my business partner has set up, who, their only job is bug testing, and they work on a series of other big projects. I've been set up with a Jira project with them, Jira being sort of bug tracking type software. And, every day, every week, we're working in sprints to, this sounds very professional, right? We are fixing bugs every single day. So by the time you get to it, there will be some, probably logic things and balancing, but you're probably not going to find the game-breaking bugs that you found in earlier Swords and Sandals. Cross fingers. Platts asks, hey, Oliver, have you ever played Darkest Dungeon? If you haven't, it's similar to Swords and Sandals, turn-based side-scroller, and you can make a game similar to it. I was actually speaking to my friend Bokimi, who is the artist for Swords and Sandals Immortals, who just bought Darkest Dungeon. I love Darkest Dungeon. I actually did an Ollie Plays / Games Gladiator video on this a few years ago, which you can check out on my channel. Great game. I love it. It reminds me a lot of Swords and Sandals. And in fact, Swords and Sandals 5, which was a dungeon crawler, one of the ideas I had was to make something like this, which is a side-scrolling kind of turn-based, party-based combat. I don't think I could have ever have done it quite the justice that Darkest Dungeon did it. Just the way they do the psychological torment of the characters and the battles and just the horror. It's a great game, and I take my hat off to those guys. I would love to make a game like that. And I've often thought about party-based sort of Swords and Sandals style games. perhaps in the future. But I definitely would take inspiration from them. In fact, the stress system of Sword and Sandals Immortals has been quite heavily inspired by Darkest Dungeon. Captain Price 21XX says Sword and Sandals 3 is the best. Yes, thank you, my friend. You can customize your characters. You can be tall and short, and you can play after you die in duels. Is that a bug or is that for people who bought the game? I don't know. Don't know. Don't have an answer to that. Sorry. Keva asks if the townspeople and gladiators, including enemies of the automatons, if they're gone, do they actually discover, studies, and test their technology? So he's talking about the precursors, who are the sort of the first species and races to come through the Constellation Mirror to the world of Tritonia. And these characters, in fact, many of them were gone within a generation because of technology, things gone wrong, cataclysmic events. Some of them went underground, that kind of thing. There is sort of remnants of that technology you can find that, you know, are quite high tech. And I kind of allude to these in Sword and Sandals Immortals. You will find out a bit more about the precursors in this game and in Constellation Mirror. Barty, hey Barty X, who's another friend of mine here from Discord, been a great guy for the years, and also a Patreon. Good man. If you had the time and money, should we go to New Orleans for a week? Oh man, I'd love to. Barty is in fact moving to the States, and I really wish him well on his adventures. Moving to Detroit, I think, or Michigan. Maybe it's just Michigan. Maybe not Detroit. I can't remember. But man, I'd love to go to New Orleans. I love the show Treme from some years ago. I love the music. The food sounds amazing. Been to America a couple of times. I've been fortunate enough to do that over the years. My business partner at eGames is in America. So, man, if I ever go to America and you guys want to go on along on a fun adventure, that'd be great. Barty, great idea. So where were we? I hope the game story won't be cheese. I don't know what cheese is. Does he mean cheesy? Probably. It's going to be good, you know, and slightly cheesy. They're always a bit cheesy. Hey, it's Panos says, I hope the Yeti in Immortals is immortal, but even more broken. Should we bring the Yeti project back again? Is anyone ready for that? I think we should. I think we might. Kikiam sounds like one of the random generated names from my characters. If there's a possibility to flip off your opponent, like I will die in peace. There are ways to taunt your opponents and so on. I don't think I can actually get the middle finger animation working because their hands are sort of set. But there are ways to taunt and insult your opponents in the game. There's a lot more taunts than there ever have been in previous Sword and Sandals. Logic says, is Arglax going to be in Sword and Sandals Immortals? No plans at the moment. Maybe there'll be a little nod to him, but if so, it'd just be a cameo. And General Nitschke, who is, of course, the great moderator of our Discord channel and a great knowledgeable fan of the series. That guy knows everything. Can we finish him off to get revenge for Battlemania Anna, who he destroyed in battle? I don't think either of them are coming back. Maybe Anna. I don't know. Riri says, I hate Arglax. He's always killing me in Sword and Sandals 3. Barty says, what do you prefer to do on your day off or your break day? What break day? I don't feel like I ever get a break. During the week, I don't really take days off. Weekends I spend with the family, my two little boys, Isaac and Charlie, and my wife. And usually we might just go to a park, go on a bush walk. Before all this COVID nonsense, we would catch up with friends and, you know, sometimes have barbecues and that kind of stuff. But it feels like lately been a lot less of that. It's a real kind of isolated year. So if we're at home, the boys like to play Lego. You can see some Lego behind me, actually. If I go to the full screen again, there, that's a Lego castle that my son and I, Isaac, been making over the Christmas break. So we just got 3 of those 3-in-1 creator castles. It was good fun. All right. Where were we? But yeah, that's what I do. I just hang out with the family these days. I used to have a lot more time to socialize with friends and so on. But, you know, COVID and little kids being what they are, you know, things change. Not forever, though. Kids grow up. COVID will go away, and So where were we? Will the armor get angry if we don't buy anything like in Sword and Sandals 2? There is a little plan to have an Easter egg to do with that. The armorer does talk to you a lot more in this game. There's a lot more dialogue and events through the game, which, not walls and walls of text, but there are little cutscenes, which I hope you like. Just kind of JRPG style bubbles, and you can talk to the weaponsmith and the armorer and so on as they go, and they'll offer you thoughts and advice. Some idiot, his words, not mine, his words, has a few questions for the channel. What made you choose the title Sword and Sandals for the series? I just like the genre. For those who know their movies, Sword and Sandals is actually kind of film genre, like and basically sort of ancient Roman epics, the biblical movies, Ben-Hur, more recently, Spartacus, Gladiator, Kingdom of Heaven, Troy, those kind of movies. I've always been inspired by that sort of thing, and it's a genre of movie that really speaks to me. So when I saw that name had not been used in a game, bam. Did I ever expect it to become this popular? No, I didn't. And I didn't really know it was actually popular. I had a vague idea from a lot of people playing, but I was kind of kept in the dark, really, by my old company. They didn't really let me know, how many fans and so on wanted to talk to me and everything. And I wish I'd been able to set up the YouTube channel and everything earlier so I could talk. What's your favorite game? My favorite game is Terraria. I play it so much with my little boy, Isaac, and it's a game that I can keep coming back to 10 years later. I can still sit down and play a game and then 8 hours have disappeared. It's everything I want in a game. I wish I'd made Terraria. Other favorite games, Ultima 6, Wonder Boy and Monsterland, Baldur's Gate 2, Zeliard, not Zelda, Zeliard, look that one up. Check out my Games Gladiator stuff if you want to see me play some old games, and you can check out my old ones. Who was the inspiration for the game? Myself and my old mate Greg Bernard, the inspiration for Belgrave, of course, came up with the Sword and Sandals world, Brandor and Tritonium Brandor, many, many years ago when we were kids. And that's sort of a story I've probably told quite a few times. But have you ever played any GTA games? Yeah, I've played GTA 4 and GTA 5, and I love them, and all the expansions for GTA 4, and of course Red Dead. I love the GTA games, and never played the online one, but I'm looking forward to GTA 6 if it ever comes. What was the first game console you ever owned? Well, technically a Commodore 64, which is more of a computer. That's showing my age. I'm real old. First proper console was a Sega Master System. All my friends had the Nintendo Entertainment System. I had the Master System, and I had Wonder Boy and Monsterland, and I loved it. Bam. Still got a soft spot. My old mate Jeff Wicks and I used to play that. What's your favorite game that you've made of Sword and Sandals? Sword and Sandals 2. I think it's everyone's favorite. It's sort of the most pure form of Sword and Sandals, and it's the one that I want to try and get back to with Immortals. Essentially sitting through, and here's Mr. Rocky. Oh, what a cute little pet rock. At this point, I want to take a little time out just to thank the Patreon supporters. I have a little Patreon. I recently changed it, so there's only one tier, just one, and I think it's something like $6 a month. And basically, if you like what I'm doing and you want to see more Sword and Sandals and more of everything, keep me and Whiskeybarrel Studios afloat, because I'm, essentially a solo developer. I contract out artists and everything. This rule helps. I don't expect anything you guys other than your enthusiasm for the series, which I totally appreciate. But if you want to go above and beyond like these guys, be a Patreon. I definitely appreciate it. And you get credit in the games, and you also get a weekly kind of behind the scenes newsletter. You find the news about the games before everyone else, and if I can find anything else to offer of value, you're gonna get that too, if I can ever think of something. Here are my patrons so far. This Hardy Bunch, Neighbor Jack, Jandaku Chanahi, Noah Gudajan, X-Up Omega, Ilya Gurovich, Jeffro of Hex 3D, Davi, Pialo34, Yunus Yalo, Hopeless, Daniel Funches, Brandon K, and the great Michael Loader. I salute you guys, and you know who else salutes you? This guy. If you would like to be a Patreon, that would make my day. Get out of here. And we're back. The next question is from Barty X again. He said, I heard somewhere you might want to make a pro wrestling game. I suggest you take inspiration from SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, and Fire Pro Wrestling World. Maybe even Matt Dickey's Wrestling Empire. I'd love to see how it turns out if you ever decide to make it. Considering I'm a fan of a wrestling game nut. Yeah, I always wanted to make a pro wrestling game, even one set in the 80s or something like that. That'd be really cool. I think there's a lot to be said for a cool wrestling simulator that is more tactical and story-based and everything, and not just sort of button mashing and so on. If I could somehow use the Sword and Sandals engine to tie it in, that's a possibility going forward. I got to think of what game I want to make after Sword and Sandals. If Sword and Sandals goes well, I have the freedom to do that. If the Sword and Sandals game doesn't go well, then there's no point continuing the series, so I might as well try something else, right? So I'll check those games out. Thank you, Barty. Much appreciated. John 3700 says, will you be able to throw sausages at your opponents? There are no plans yet to do that. So Captain Prince says, make it possible to lose limbs and to see a doctor for replacements. So at the moment, you can lose limbs in the game. You can lose arms and legs and your head and everything like that. And after the battle, you get healed. But I'm not sure if there will be a penalty for losing limbs financially afterwards. But there have been plans to maybe be able to put sort of robotic arms and legs on your character. Going forward, I've put a robotic skill tree in the game, but it's not fleshed out yet. So we'll see about that. Barty X asks, will randomly enchanted weapons like Sword and Sandals 3 return in Immortals? Yeah, they will, indeed. Think of the Diablo-style prefix and suffix system with sturdy axe of the bear or, King's Helmet of Might. They're going to be in the game. You won't see them in the demo, probably not, because the demo is going to be out in about a month, and I don't have enough time for that. But in the early access build and onward, yeah, you're going to see some really cool random weapons, because I know that everyone kind of liked that from Sword and Sandals 3, and I think that adds a lot to the longevity and the tactical nature of the game. AJXX asks, will Axopods return? Are the Glamozods the same as the humans? The Axopods are back. Yeah, I put them in. They certainly are back. They are this insect race, this sort of insectoid race. They're pretty evil, and they live in sort of underground, sort of termite mound type things in a place called Hella Haxus and Dark Haxus. You'll see backgrounds for them as well. They have their own special story and everything, and you can play them in the game. Glamazons are not human. They are giant 7-foot ladies who have come from their own planet. They look like they're human, but they're not. And they're in the game too, and you can be a Glamazon. They're pretty kick-ass. They're awesome, in fact. One of my favorite new characters for the game, or returning characters to the game. So, what's the max level in Immortals? Asks some idiot. How many bosses? Max level at the moment is probably about 60 or 70. That will probably increase, and you're going to see at least 35 regional champions and another sort of probably 10 to 15 arena champions. So we're talking at least 50 to 60 champions in the game, and that's I can tell you that's a lot. That's as many as they've ever been, and probably more than many of the games combined. And each champion is a bit more interesting as well. They have more tactics and more special skills and talents to use. So I'm really excited to show you some of them. There's one champion in the game so far, and it is, of course, Critical. Charlie White, also known as Penguinzo, and Moist Critical, and his character, Huge Charles, is in the game as the very first arena champion. I can reveal that to you now. He's done a voice set for it and everything, and it's great, and I can't wait to show you that. Where were we? Luanatsi asks this. In Sword and Sandals Immortals, will skin colors be unique to the character species, or will we be able to customize our characters with absurd colors, even if they're not from a unique species? So you can customize each skin to a certain degree. Humans have the regular ones. Each different species has sort of variants. I'm sort of thinking of some ideas to have magic dyes and so on to be able to tint your characters with crazy hair and that, but that won't come till after early access if possible. He says Sword and Sandals 4 is a good game. It'd be fun to see a real board game version of it. That would be cool. I don't think the game was ever that popular that I could do that, but if there was ever a Sword and Sandals board game, it'd be fun to do. And thanks for the franchise. Waiting for the next one. Keep up the good work. Hugs from Portugal. I love Portugal. I went to Portugal when I was 22, I think. 22, man. And I went to Lagos and Lisbon and spent about 8 days in Lagos just having a good time. And they were good days. I'd love to go back to those simpler times. Beautiful country. Obrigado. Figo! Louis Figo. It's my knowledge of Portugal. Figo was popular when I was there. Logic asks, are there going to be different endings for Sword and Sandals? Immortals, good ending or a bad ending? I'm not sure. There is going to be an ending if you defeat the bad guy. I nearly told you his name, but you'll find out his name later this week. In fact, unless you're a patron, which you'll already know the name of the big bad guy. And if you fail to defeat the big bad guy in time, you will see a bad ending. So yeah, at least 2 endings. Yashi asks this. Will you add multiple gladiators saving in Sword and Sandals 4? It seems like not a big deal, but increased replayability of the game. Wow, it's been so long since I've done this. Last one is, I actually did add that. So that's in the game now. Sword and Sandals 4 Classic Collection has multiplayer saving. Yeah, you're welcome. Rintipas.og asks, will the height and weight affect combating properties in Sword and Sandals Immortals like in Sword and Sandals 3? Yeah, it does. You can get you can move faster, I think, and have the more weight you are, the harder it is to push, and the more push power you have. And I think it slightly affects your health. I can't remember exactly. Dark Lord 494 asks, is the name Edengarth meant to be a corruption of the Garden of Eden? Garden of Eden, Eden Garden, Edengarth. I never thought of that, but it does sound kind of cool, and it could work. It does work, kind of thematically. I don't hate that. It actually came from Wayne's World, Wayne and Garth, and I just kind of was into Wayne's World at the time, which is a movie from the 90s comedy for those young kids. There were 2 characters, Wayne and Garth, and I changed it to Ed and Garth because it sounded a little nod to. I don't know why. It was just the thing to do at the time. Mac in Person asks this. Where are you? There you go. Is there a way to make custom items in Sword and Sandals 3? Like download a program or mod? If there is, I'm not sure. I've seen people sort of modding the games. Check out the mod section of the Discord channel. You can ask those guys. AGXX asks, will Immortals have cosmetic armors? Like you have armor that gives you stats, but you can choose to wear another set of armor visually. No plans for that yet. Maybe something to think about in the future if there's enough demand for it. Vicned asks, how did he Chaos and his and Boars the Mighty end up selling weapons at the Gladiator Trials? And what does SSCM stand for? So the reason he Chaos was a salesman in Sword and Sandals 3 was because I hadn't really thought the lore through very well back then. So I've had to retrofit it and say he actually fell on really, really hard times after Sword and Sandals 2. And the Crusades basically sent him bankrupt and he pretty much lost control of the legions and everything. And so he ended up working as a shopkeeper for a while. But I'm sure there's more to it than that, which I have to fletch into the lore. Same with Boars, just fell on really hard times. And, Olaf the Mighty. No, that was before him. The Sons of Frost basically sort of lost faith in him after the Crusades and everything. SSCM stands for Sword and Sandals Constellation Mirror, which is the big mirrored portal that opens up every 50 years. It's on an island in Phaetor, and things come through it. Sometimes a huge monster, sometimes a species of people, sometimes a mixture. And the next big game I want to make, Sword and Sandals Constellation Mirror, if I don't make the wrestling game, will be a full-on cool role-playing game set in Brandor all about the Constellation Mirror and the horrors that are about to come through. I Am Ballin asks, did you draw the new character sprites of Sword and Sandals Immortals, or was it commission? I didn't do them. I wish I could draw that well. No, my friend. It been commissioned. I was looking for an artist for a little while, and I found a great artist from Russia, Alexander Terentev, better known as Bakimi. And Bakimi is just phenomenal. He's really put his heart and soul into the project, and he's taken a lot of interest in it. And I hope to work with him for many years going forward. And he's done phenomenal art for the game and will continue to do so throughout this year. A lot of people ask why I don't draw for the series anymore. This takes too long. I'd love to still be able to draw my little characters for the games, but as a solo developer, I have a limited time, and I think it's better spent me doing the coding, someone else doing the art. Unfortunately, no one else can quite match my art style. Otherwise, I would, try to replicate it perfectly. But, I think this art style is really cool in that it blends together a bit of Sword and Sandals 3 and Sword and Sandals 2, and, has its own unique spin on it. And I'm so honored to have this guy on board. Dragofist asks, will there be new armor weapons to Sword and Sandals Immortals, or is it the same from Sword and Sandals 2? Mixture. A lot of Sword and Sandals 2 armor, and some Sword and Sandals 3, a little bit of it. But what we will see is, imagine Sword and Sandals 2 armor, but with all these magic variants. So like King's noob armor of the Cobra, and it'll be glowing green, that kind of stuff. Plus we'll see some also new armor you've never seen before. Chef Dog asks, Oliver, I bought Pirates Ultratus, and I read on Google Play Store you're giving 50% off the Classic Collection at the moment. So that was a question about discounts and so on. If you have any questions about that, just ask the guys at eGames, support@egames.com, because they handle the discounts and the promotions of that. And hit them up, there might be a discount available. I'm not really sure. That was from September, so it might have been a while ago. And Matt says, you mean the eGames coupon? You can't use it anymore because they moved from eGames to Steam. Okay, there's your answer. Yeah, they don't work anymore. The mobile games used to have discounts on the eGames, but it got too complicated. We moved it all to Steam. Cuba S asks, this one might be interesting. Of all the Sword and Sandals characters we've seen in action, excluding the absolute god levels like Soul or Smitey, who's your top 10 most powerful characters lore-wise? A top 10, hard to guess. Of course, like Soul and Bargle and so on. Bargle's infinitely powerful. If you're talking Antares is very powerful, but still gets defeated. Antares would probably be number one. Who else? Chaos is very powerful. We like to laugh at him, but he's also very powerful. He's got this madness to him. Belgrave is one of the great swords and swordsmen in the realm, as is Wolfgang. King Lionel is a great fighter. So all the defenders of Brando are up there. Gosh, it's hard to think off the top of my head because there's lots of different arena champions with lots of powers. Platos, the golem, who's kind of weak in Sword and Sandals 3, but he's meant to be one of the toughest characters in the realm. The Daughter of the Blades is one of the great swordsmen of the realm. Sagan Z, very powerful mage. They're not really ranked, and I should actually sit down and try and rank them. Sword and Sandals Immortals has power scores, so you actually have to rank them officially yourself when you check it out. Bardi asks, will a more fleshed out neutral alignment be added? It'd be cool to have 3 options: spare, kill, or walk away after defeating your enemy. Walking away, leaving your enemies ambiguous and making your alignment neutral. So in Sword and Sandals Immortals, not there yet, but there will be returning the alignment system of spare or kill. And if you kill enemies, you get more evil, and you get a couple of evil powers. Good, you get a few good powers like healing and that kind of stuff, and access to sort of holy or unholy weapons. Neutral's a tricky one because it's hard to kind of make interesting powers for, and it's also hard to keep the balance because at what point do you become good or evil, and so I don't know what to do with neutral. I have to think about it. Come back to that one. Bardi actually has an option for that. Maybe the ability to pick your own alignment's powers, like good alignment would benefit you, bad alignment would hurt your enemy, neutral would, I don't know, maybe something special. Hard to guess. Niram asks, is Ultratus Omega's helmet and tail reference to the alien Xenomorph? You're absolutely right. It's completely inspired by the Queen from Aliens. She is an awesome, powerful looking design from, I think it was H.R. Geiger came up that, and Stan Winston and those guys. Yeah, absolutely inspired by Aliens Queen. MBLCH asks, was the name of the mission in Sword and Sandals Crusader, the greatest colossus in the world, inspired by the greatest robot in the world? You bet it was. You bet it was. So Astro Boy is one of my childhood favorite characters. I remember growing up as a young kid watching Astro Boy, which is a cartoon series from Japan, from the great Osamu Takusa Osamu, I think his name was. I butchered that. But Astro Boy was a great series, and there was the best episode I thought was called The Greatest Robot in the World. And this one was all about a tournament of robots all fighting each other, and Astro Boy had to go around and was challenged by a huge robot called Bruton. And Bruton would go around fighting these robots, and that actually heavily inspired Sword and Sandals in many ways. So the greatest colossus in the world was a little nod to that. You can find the greatest robot in the world on YouTube, and I really recommend it. There's an 80s version, and I believe there's also there was a 2000s cartoon of it. So yeah, good reference. Thanks for picking it up. Barty asks, what's your ideal drink at a bar? And what would be your ideal coffee? If I'm at a bar, these days I just drink a beer. I used to like whiskey when I was in my 30s and a bit more sort of carefree and chasing the girls and, going out late at night and bars and pubs and stuff with my mates, partial to a good whiskey. But these days, just sit me down with a beer at a pub. Even then, I can't even go to the pub anymore, sadly, because of this stupid coronavirus. Yeah, it'll all happen again. But coffee, I just drink mochas these days. So yeah, a little half coffee, half chocolate. So I'm not even a dedicated coffee drinker. You know me. I got my stupid instant coffee still. If Sword and Sandals Immortals does well, I'll actually buy a proper coffee machine. I've been saying that for years, but it will happen. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, where were we? We're probably up to about an hour already. Crazy. I don't know. Does Wolfgang like coffee? Asks Matt. He's a drunk though, says Niram. Yeah, but he needs to cure for the hangover, right? I didn't drink coffee until probably my late 20s. You know what I mean? And I got to it late. So I was going all through Europe in my early 20s, not drinking coffee. Really missed out. Leo says, public service announcement. Careful mixing caffeine and alcohol. Good point. Yeah, don't drink those Red Bulls. It's not good for you. General Nitschke says, if I remember well, last time I checked, his mug had some cold coffee left and no whiskey. You know me too well, because in that mug is some cold coffee. We'll show you on the full screen. There you go. There's some cold coffee. Let's finish that. Cold. It's actually not bad. It's actually Victoria instant coffee. It gets a bad reputation, but it's not terrible. All right, where were we? This is why it's going for an hour, because I'm being sidetracked by silly questions. Not silly questions, silly answers to good questions. Coffee Barrel Studios, says Matt. I like it. You guys are great. I love these. You guys are the best fans. I am Ballin says, will the dungeon crawler stuff return in Immortals? And I actually replied, great questions, guys. I'm going to do an AMA in the next few weeks, and I never did. You know what? The dungeon crawler stuff is returning. I should announce that now. I'm doing a very simple 3D dungeon crawler. If you've ever played Eye of the Beholder or Bard's Tale or those kind of or more recently Grimoire, step, you will find there is these cool little dungeon sections in it. And that's what I want to put in the game. Just simple, probably one level dungeons, nothing as big as Sword and Sandals 5, but I feel like I need to stretch the game out a little bit more. and just add a bit more than just fighting, because you now go all around the world of Brandor. So I want to have these little dungeons where you can go in, get powerful treasures, maybe fight some dungeon bosses. That's not going to come until way after early access, and it'll sort of depend on the popularity of the game, how much I flesh them out. But the plan right now is to have a little bit of dungeon crawling, not the main focus of the game, just a little. I hope you guys like that though. Let me know in the comments. Dat 1996 Swords from Vietnam, big shout out my friend, has a question. When it comes to Steam Next Fest, can we play the demo? We need to edit the information to see if it's correct. Yeah, so the Steam Next Fest is coming. You'll be able to play the demo of Sword and Sandals Immortals from February 17 onward. Very exciting. I can't wait for you to see it. And we're just putting the finishing touches on it right now. I'll be submitting a demo to Steam in the next week or so. Exciting. Can't believe we're nearly there. I'm kind of nervous too, to be honest. I really am. I want you guys to like it. I want the world to like it. I really want Sword and Sandals to be the series that it can be. AJXX has a question again, and he asks, where are we? Will the races have different mechanics when they lose limbs? Not yet. I want to flesh out all the different species and races and so on and give them unique things. But the plan is for things like skeletons and maybe hexapods and of course automatons to be able to be quite functioning without heads and without that kind of stuff. Other races, of course, suffer great system shocks, and probably the battle ends if you lose your head. If you lose your arm, you can still fight without a sword. You can, use a shield and that kind of stuff. Straken asks, do you have plans for other games? If so, what would they be? I've talked about it a little bit, but just quickly, I would love to make Constellation Mirror, the Ultima style role-playing game. Things with that, I don't think it's going to be a big seller. So I need this game to make enough money to be able to cover that kind of game. It's more a sort of passion project. I think a wrestling game would sell quite nicely. I do want to make some kind of cool, kind of roguelike game again. I've always liked that sort of genre. A party-based adventure game. There's a cool game I want to make, sort of a vampire / Terraria style game. I've got these ideas, but finding the right one is hard. It's hard. You come up with an idea and you come back to it months later, and if you're still thinking about it in 6 months or 9 months, maybe there's something there. Ideas are cheap. Good ideas, not so much. Straken also asks, with game design, what do you do when you're stuck? When you're lacking a creative flow that day or not sure where to go next? You know what? This sounds kind of funny, but I never get stuck. I could, honestly, if I didn't have a family, I could probably do this every single day, like from 6 a.m. till late at night. That's how, I need to be pulled away from the computer to do other stuff. And that's one good thing about having a family, is they ground you a little and they kind of get me away from the computer. But even then, sometimes I'm still thinking about the game, so I never get stuck creatively. So, okay, but say I do. Maybe that's not entirely true. Every now and again, I might get stuck on a technical problem or something. But when you're working on a game, there's always different things you can be working on. So if you're stuck with a technical problem in the game, you can always go design some bosses or design a location for the game. Or if you're stuck creatively, then you can work on a technical problem. You might design some particle effects or get some new sounds. So there's always something else in the game that you can be working on. I know other designers and developers get creative block, and I know that's a really real thing. But I've been just lucky over the years that I just have never found that. And I've never ever wanted to take time away from it. It's crazy. Yeah. That's, I guess, how I can work and put a game out every year, because I just sort of have that drive, keep going. Bardi asks, what state and city in the US would you like to visit or live in? Okay, to live in, I'd love to live in the greatest city in the world, or one of them, New York City. I just have a special relationship with that city. I love it. I love the people. I love the vibe. I love the deep dish, big pizzas, and I'm always in a New York state of mind. I'd love to visit the big national parks. I'd like to do the Pacific Crest Trail. I'd love to do the Appalachian Trail, hike some of that with, whoever would want to hike. You know, if I'm ever, maybe my sons when they're old enough will do it together. That'd be fun. There's a lot of, you know, bad stuff in America. Don't get me wrong, America has some real problems. Also a lot of good stuff in America and beautiful national parks. I'd just love to see, you know, Yellowstone, Yosemite, and, you know, all that good stuff. Where were we? Okay, Matt asks, if you had a choice of beer or coffee, what would you completely eliminate from your life? Keep in mind that programming when we're drunk might be challenging. I used to do that back in the early days. Okay, 100% beer. Gone. Happy to get rid of it. I wouldn't even drink anymore if it wasn't for the rare kind of social occasion. I don't even need... I used to have, you know, a bit of a... I wouldn't say a drinking problem, but I drank too much going out with friends and so on. Happy to get rid of it. And I feel better for it. So, but coffee, a little harder to live without. You know, that's me these days anyway. I'm old. Okay. Paladin Dave Bro asks, in Sword and Sound Immortals, will limb loss be permanent or be a game mechanic that lets us reacquire our lost natural limbs? At the moment, it's permanent as far as like to the end of the fight. There may be spells to regrow limbs and so on, but you know, at the end of the fight, you can get your limbs back magically somehow. I got to work that into the story somehow. CR Derv asks, in Sword and Sandals has always been so swear sword cool. Thank you. It's a shame you had to rush agility to get them instead of the usual maces. But my question is, do you come up with a sword or weapon design yourself, or what inspired you to make them the way they are? Most of them are designed from, you know, real weapons. A lot of them are from sort of the classic Dungeons and Dragons weapons list, all the different, you know, pole arms and halberds and so on. A lot of them are just sort of classic archetype weapons. I haven't really come up with many unique weapons myself that I know of. It's all kind of borrowed, really. Logic asks, is this guy going to be in Sword and Sandals Immortals as an Easter egg? That guy, that little knight, he was the very first character I drew for Sword and Sandals. That was the test character. I don't know who he is, why he's in desert. It'd be kind of funny to a little nod to him there. Maybe we can put him in somehow. You've got me inspired. Maybe I should chuck him in there as an Easter egg if I can find where that sprite is. Clever tactic, but fail, says, got a question regarding Sword and Sandals 2. Torn Effect has 6 outcomes. 1, 2, and 3 are pretty obvious. 4 is obvious, but when you have high charisma, I can't answer that one because I can't even remember Sword and Sandals 2's torn options. Sorry. I failed you. Ajax asks, will the game have any jump scares or troll death scenes like in Sword and Sandals 5 or in the cave without a torch, please? Maybe we're in the dungeon. We'll put that in. That'd be kind of fun, a little nod to that, those Grudars. Cuba has lots of questions. See what we can get through because I've got a lot of questions and a lot of things here. So, okay, we'll be able to destroy the Malevolence one day. Will he be the final villain? Too early to say, but he may feature in Constellation Mirror. Will Sword and Sandals Immortals be the final numbered Sword and Sandals? Do you have plans for part 7? Big pushes for the lore. The game will continue to Constellation Mirror after that, I think. And I wish I don't know. When you play the single player mode of this game, you will actually find it's called Sword and Sandals 6, which is kind of fun. And, you know, if it does well, who doesn't want a numbered sequel? I called it Immortals because there's a multiplayer section, so on. It's all very confusing. I kind of wish I'd stuck with Sword and Sandals 6. I like the numbers, but it's too late now. Where were we? At least one Earthling showed up in Sword and Sandals 3, technically making Earth canon. If so, does it make Medieval and Spartacus canon? Yeah, they're canon because they somehow are tied in through the Constellation Mirror. You characters like Brian May. Chaos has been in to Earth. So yeah, it's all canon. And there's a way that'll tie it in together. Is there any way to open the Constellation Mirror before half century passes? What do you think about the idea of some evil dude opening it intentionally to bring chaos to the universe? That's an interesting one, which may somehow tie into Sword and Sandals. Constellation Mirror. Yeah, maybe. So far, no one's been able to figure out a way to open it outside of that 50 years. Will real-time multiplayer duels make a return at any time soon? Yeah, it will. It absolutely will. It's going to come back. It's part of multiplayer Sword and Sandals Immortals. Not till way after early access, so sometime late this year, but I am going to be working on it with someone. If someone wanted to create a cool Sword and Sandals spin-off, how would you share your profit? If someone wants to and can figure out a way, let me know. We can talk. Yeah, I have a business partner at eGames, and we'd probably license it out somehow to the right people. You know, you have to be careful with these things. You have a certain kind of like a brand you have to try and protect. But, you know, if someone could somehow expand it in a different direction, I'd be open to offers and I'd be interested. Another important subject. What was the most important life lesson? What most important lesson life gave you? All right, that's a good one. It's a great question. Okay, life lesson number one off the top of my head is that change is coming, better or worse. So don't worry too much about where you are at 20. If you don't know what you're doing, where you are at 25, if you don't know what you're doing, if you've messed up, you can change. And, you know, if you're at the bottom of the valley, you'll climb out. If you're at the top, you know, you can go downhill. Change can happen and it can be a good thing. So just don't ever feel like you're stuck where you are. You can change your stars. That's my number one life lesson. Okay. Deleted user. I barely knew you. Deleted user. What happened to deleted user? Did you plan on adding color schemes for armors? Yeah, there's a plan for that for sure. Could be unlockable at a level of gold, but the color schemes are going to be tied to the different species. Sorry, the different rarities of each armor and so on. Man, this is tiring. I don't know how people speak for hours on Discord and Twitch and stream for hours. It's hard work. Harder than game dev, I must say. Logic asks, what mic do you have to record your YouTube content? This is a Samsung Meteor. I'll show you. Samsung Meteor. Not as good as a Yeti mic. Not bad. Not as good as a Yeti. Oh, there's my shelves. There you go. Look. Here's what we're doing now. The shelf. The office. There you go. Me. Yeah, you know, I can recommend it. It's not too bad. It's a bit cheaper than a Yeti microphone, which all the popular YouTubers have, but it does the job for me, and I'm happy with it for now. If it ever breaks, I probably would get a Yeti mic, though. That's one I would recommend. V, the Victorious, asks, is it possible the Gladiator, the Nameless, the Starband Gladiator, and the Companion all reincarnations of the same soul? That's a cool idea. In this case, it isn't possible because of the lore, and you'll see in future games why. But I do like the idea. Question 2, is the Nameless responsible for Antari's return in Sword and Sandals 5 because he didn't beat his ghost after winning the final tournament? That's kind of good logic too. No, it isn't possible, but I do like your thinking. Eldigos thinks they're different individuals, and I think he may be correct. Okay, a little bit of chat. Matt asks, why are these three people in the photo? Be sure the one in the middle is your old... I'm not even going to mention that name. The other guy, the one on the left was my avatar back at the old company. The one on the right was a guy called Deej. The one in the middle we don't speak of. Ever. Moving on. Okay. Barty asks, is the good old little fat kid going to make an appearance in Immortals? I think he should. He isn't so far. But it wouldn't be a Sword and Sandals game without a little fat kid, would it? Ajax asks, personal question. Do you have pets? Lots of people like that. Well, over the years, I've had lots of fish. I don't have any fish at the moment, sadly. I have one cat called Max, and he's a good cat. He's the family cat. Big, orange, tabby cat who's probably... I don't know how old he is because he's a rescue cat, but I'm thinking he's probably 12 or 13. We rescued him and his mum, whose name was Minnie, and she unfortunately died last year. But Max is a very affectionate cat, and he wakes us all up every morning with big meows. So yeah, I love Max the cat. Max actually, I've made he'll be in Constellation Mirror as a playable character. I got a little pixel art thing done of him. Remember this for in a few years' time. You go, why is there a playable cat? Because it's my cat. Deleted user. I wonder who that was. Any chance that instead of those daggers, we'll be able to buy and use small, low-weight secondary weapons, make things more unique? I've thought instead of the shank, I've thought about it. For now, I'm just keeping the shank because it's easy. Is Pilthia based off ancient Greece? Yeah, it definitely is sort of inspired by, with all the sort of the Cycladians' homeland of Pilthia, and Braxis is also inspired by ancient Greece. Will the southern lands, such as jungles, be added to Immortals map? You'll see a lot of Brandor. It goes as far, it's pretty much the same map as Crusader, stretches a little bit further south to the deserts, and you can go slightly into Eldorhath as well. If there's an expansion, we'll go further into Eldorhath and maybe to the jungles where the Glamazons are from and so on. Okay, Ajax asks, will bosses champions have unique races, body types, and armor sets like previous games? Unique races and body types, yes, they will, and certainly unique, probably unique, one unique helmet or one unique bit of armor, that kind of thing. Is the early access 100% confirmed, or is it possible for you to release the game in a finished state day one? Since that question, yeah, 100% early access. The game will not be completely finished by the time you can buy it, but with your early support, I will be able to, continue making the game as good as it can. And, because basically I need to start paying for this development, because I'm already starting to, money from other games doesn't last forever. And if I want to keep doing it, I've got to start making money from it. Speaking of Sword and Sandals Immortals, let's check out the classic trailer. This trailer is in fact quite old now, and a lot has changed since this trailer. And in the next few weeks, I'm putting together an updated trailer for the Steam Next Fest. So I'm looking forward to showing you that. There's a lot has improved since this one. But, I'm pretty proud of that trailer anyway. So if you like Swords and Sandals, Immortals, and what you see there, give it a wish list, please. Please, I wish you would do a wish list. If every one of the guys in the Discord and everyone on the YouTube channel wish listed the game, it would easily be in the popular upcoming games for Steam. So I implore you, please wish list the game if you haven't already. Thank you, my friends. Ajax asks, have you ever had a real life encounter with any fans or someone who recognizes you or your games in public? Quite a few people that recognize the games. No one's ever recognized me personally yet. I'm not even close to that level of fame. Yeah, I wish. Or maybe it's good to be anonymous and just have the games be popular. I think that's probably better. Better to be, I'm not rich, but it'd be better to be rich than famous. If you know what I mean? Even if you're famous, you get a lot of hassle, I think. People get hassled a lot. You'd rather be one of those sort of like the developer of Terraria, who's very wealthy now, or the guy who made Stardew Valley. He's wealthy, but people don't really know what they look like so much, other than the hardcore fans. Dragofist asks, what race is Antares? Is he a skeleton? He's Eldorhath. He was turned into a Lich Lord through the Dark Covenant that he made with the Malevolent and so on. And, he is gone now, but he was originally a very, very, very handsome, beautiful man from Eldorhath, very tall, 7 foot plus, with his sort of black purple skin and sort of flowing hair. But unfortunately, the magic ruined him, and that's why he wore the dark mask before he was turned into a lich, trying to seek immortality. The moral of the tale is don't try and seek immortality, because it's never going to work. Little stuff on the spirit meter. Yep. Just going to skip through these because we're getting long on this video. What does weapon speed do in Sword and Sandals 3? I don't remember. I can't remember. I think it was going to be it was a scrap mechanic, says Spoon. Fjordsman Kobe asks, curious with all these Redux games, is there a chance you'll Redux Tavern Quest? if there's enough demand for it, that might be fun to do, because I feel like Sword and Sandals 3 would be the next Redux, and then if that's popular, 4. But if I did a Redux for 4, I'd probably have to scrap most of the mini games and make new ones, because God, I am not remaking those horrible old mini games. Will Sword and Sandals Immortals be on consoles? Asked Chef Dog. No plans at this stage. If it does well, then perhaps I can commission someone to port it to Switch and so on. As Nitschke says. Keather asks, Champion Sprint or Sword and Sandals Champion Sprint is a free HTML5 game. Oh, okay. Oh, what is Champion Sprint? Okay. Yeah, that was a little game. It's one of the least liked. I didn't even make that one, to be honest. That was programmed by someone else who's a quite limited programming skills, and yeah, it didn't really work out. It was an experiment. I didn't think HTML5 gaming is really a good fit for Sword and Sandals 5 and for the Sword and Sandals series. And that game, I don't even know if it's still online. I don't really recommend it. It's an oddity, but it is what it was. What can you tell us about the cancelled Sword and Sandals MMO game? Says Ajax. There's a whole video on that. Oh yeah, there's some video on it. There you go. They can play that. Does it still play? Oh yeah. This is what it would have looked like. It was going to be some kind of like World of Warcraft style MMO. There's the Iron Giant. Funny. Yeah, never happened in the end. Oh well. What's the plan after Sword and Sandals 6? I've answered that already, but looking forward to see what you can come up with working together with the guys from Gavra Games who made Warriors Rise to Glory. I think it's cool how two different teams can use the same foundations and formula in different completely ways. I think it'd be cool to see how you play and react to Warriors Rise to Glory one day. I did a video on that. I did a playthrough of it, and I had a lot of fun with it. Since then, I got to be honest with you, nothing's really happened with the Gavra Games guys. We're both very busy on our own projects. Perhaps in the months and years going forward, we'll team up again. But the door is now open. I now have a relationship with those guys, and I would like to work with them further. And I look forward to seeing where their game goes. And it is, like you said, it is nice to have our two similar series with the foundations that I came up with going these different directions and seeing what they come up with, because, I think it's a kind of a fun mechanic, and I like to see others working with it. So, skipping. Nero asks if you had an opportunity to remaster a Sword and Sandals game, which one would it be and why? I'd like to do 3, and I'm kind of doing 3 with Immortals, and I think there will be a DLC with Sword and Sandals 3, because I do like that game. I do think it's buggy, but I do like kind of the world, and I like the bosses and the locations and so on. So I think that will be the one that I would do. I'd also like another crack at 5 one day, because something not quite right about it. Just the dungeon crawling is a little bit off. Where were we? Kuba says, will a Discord AMA ever happen? I'm sorry, it took so long. It's happening now. In games like Sword and Sandals 2, where certain weapons require you to have a certain amount of agility and strength, how does Louis Delange have them all? How could he lift them all? Is he used to those weapons before? Did he use them before? So he's basically asking, how does Louis lift and use those weapons? He doesn't. He makes them, but he struggles and picks them up and then hands them to you and says, "Can you wield this, please?" So yeah, it's like he makes them, can't wield them though. He's not strong enough, but he knows how to make a decent weapon. Incidentally, Guillaume de Langeville is in Sword and Sandals Immortals, and he is Louis' son. I can't remember if I told you that, guys, or not. Little story. John Dingo asks, on Twitter I mentioned that I would like to see I'd like to be a future arena champion in Sword and Sandals games. The name was John Dingo. Is it RMA champion in a game? I can't remember this conversation, but so far there's no John Dingo champion. But message me again on Twitter and we can maybe chat about what that was about. You want to make a board game based on Sword and Sandals 4? I forgot about that. That sounds cool. Very good luck. I hope it works out for you. Neeram says, why is Platos in Sword and Sandals 3 the weakest champion? I think it's just because I think Vitality was just a bit of a damage sponge stat, and he was never as strong and powerful as I wanted him to be. Perhaps he returns in Immortals, perhaps, and I can make him more powerful than ever. In Sword and Sandals 5 Immortals, will there be difficulty settings? Do you want difficulty settings? Is that something you guys want? There may be difficulty settings. I'm sort of going to toy with that based on feedback. That's a good thing about early access is you can have this kind of stuff. You can come up with, experiment with feedback for that. Oh, I'm getting tired. So many questions. Where are we at? Still a few ways to go. All right. Mateus Ramos 97 says, will there ever be a Portuguese Brazilian translation for the Classic Collection? Unfortunately, there will not, because it's too hard to translate those games. They don't have the ability to translate. Using Godot, my new engine, has the ability to translate, and Spanish Latin American is already in for the early access and demo, thanks to a great friend of mine called Wenjun Junlong Jian Huan. I probably mispronounced your name, but a wonderful guy, great fan of the series from Peru, who's translated into Spanish Latin American, and I thank him. And maybe Portuguese will come as well, depending on fan demand. There's a lot more text in this game than ever before, so it's a lot of work for people to translate. Just want anyone that's thinking of volunteering, I definitely just letting you know there's a lot of work there. Are there going to be random events or fights when you travel with the map? Yeah, there are. There's going to be random encounters and also sort of bandits and that kind of thing. Kruv Kavoosh says, I want to buy the game, but I've seen lots of reports about game-breaking bugs for the Classic Collection. Look, nothing's game-breaking. Nothing's really game-breaking. You might have to reset the game now and again, but this game is saved so often that you're not losing that much. These games have always been a bit buggy, I'll admit that, but nothing is truly, truly game-breaking. You could finish every one of the Sword and Sandals games.